Hello humans of the internet, my name is Iceberg Lettuce, and today we are here in Minecraft 1.16.2, that's right. The full release of Minecraft 1.16.2 is finally here, so let's take a look at everything that has been changed in this version. Let's go. There is an absolute ton of stuff that has been changed in this version, so I've decided to split up everything that we need to talk about into 5 different categories. First we've got blocks, then items, then mobs, then over there we've got structures and other. So let's get started. Our first category is blocks. Now the first blocks we're going to be talking about are not really blocks, but mushrooms. So we've got some stuff involving the funguses and mushrooms. First of all, you can now place the different types of nether fungus on mycelium. So as you can see, we've got a warped fungus and a crimson fungus on here. You cannot, however, bone meal them on mycelium. You can only place them down. They will only grow on their respective colors of nylium. And speaking of nylium, we've also got some mushrooms here, a red mushroom and a brown mushroom, and these can both be placed on both types of nylium. And unlike these nether funguses, you can in fact grow these on top of the nylium. Well, I mean, you would be able to. I'm pretty sure that's blocking this, but you get the idea. Next up, we've got some changes to the lanterns, which is that they can now be waterlogged. So here you can see we've got both types of lantern, the normal lantern and the soul lantern, and they can now be placed underwater. Here we've got some changes to the beds. First of all, let's set it to night, and as you can see, if I step into this bed from this side of the bed, and then we get out, it will now try to place you on the same side of the bed that you got into the bed from. This is not, however, the case if there is a dangerous type of block where you step into the bed. So if I step into it from this angle and then get out, it will place me right next to the magma blocks instead of trying to place me on them. Next up is a pretty cool change to the chains, which is that they can now be placed sideways in both directions. I don't know why this counts as a block change, but I'm pretty sure it's a change to the way that the bubble columns work, and I guess that's technically a block, so it goes in this category, I guess. Anyway, that change is that these sorts of throwable items, such as ender pearls and snowballs, will now be affected by the bubble column. So as you can see, if we throw a snowball into there, it will get picked up by the bubble column and start bouncing around at the top. Another change with projectiles is that they will no longer get stopped by objects that do not have any actual collision. So I believe previously, stuff like sunflowers and double tall flowers would break snowballs if you hit one with a snowball, and that is no longer the case. And the last block-related change we have here is that no types of nether vegetation, such as the nylium, will catch fire when they are next to lava. Next up, we are here in the items section. So the first change to items is with a crafting recipe, which is that you can now craft brewing stands with blackstone. So as you can see, it's the same recipe as a normal one, except replace the cobblestone with blackstone. Next up, we've got a change to the totem of undying. So if we, for example, die due to fire damage, then when that totem activates, you now gain the effect fire resistance. Next up, we've got a change to the way items are sorted in the creative inventory. So if we go here to the tools section, you can see that no longer are the tools sorted by like shovels are together, pickaxes are together, axes are together. Now you can see it goes by material. So all the wood stuff is together, stone stuff is together, you get the idea. Here we've got a change to the way the soul speed enchantment works. So if we put on these soul speed boots, you can see that we now still will gain the soul speed effect even through blocks such as slabs. So you can place slabs on top of soul soil or soul sand, and your soul speed boots will still work through them. And lastly, for the items, we've got a change to pufferfish, which is that now when you eat a pufferfish, it will give you the nausea 1 effect instead of nausea 2. This doesn't actually cause anything to change, it still looks the exact same. It was just a mistake in the code, I believe, that caused it to give you nausea 2 instead of nausea 1. I'm not going to actually eat it because I know that swirly effect makes some people dizzy, and I don't really want to look at it either. And the next category we're going to take a look at is mobs. So first up, the biggest change is that there is a brand new mob added, the Piglin Brute. So the Piglin Brute is pretty different from normal piglins. It will always attack you, no matter what you're wearing, even if you're wearing gold, and it does not like to barter, so even if you throw gold down here, it doesn't want anything to do with that. Now these guys don't spawn normally in the world, you will only find them in the Piglin Bastions, because they thought that the Bastions were too easy, I think. You were pretty easily able to evade the Piglins if you just wore some gold stuff, so now these guys will always attack you and make the Bastions a little bit more difficult. Next up, another pretty small change is that you can now lead Zoglins. I'm not really sure why anyone would want to lead a Zoglin, but you can do that if you want to. Here we've got a villager, because as you can see, if we take away his workstation and then place it down again, when he gains a workstation, he will now emit some green particles. I believe this is a parity change, meaning that this was already in Minecraft Bedrock Edition, but they have now added it to Java. Oh, and this also works if you place down a bed. When the villager accepts the bed, it will also gain some green particles around its head. Piglins will now get angry if you open minecart chests, and also I believe hopper minecarts. And next up we've got changes to the bartering system for piglins. So the most important changes you need to know are that these two items have been completely removed from bartering, the magma cream and the glowstone dust. I believe the reason for this is that there are already pretty good ways of farming these things, for example a magma cube farm and a witch farm, but those have been removed. And then over here we've got three things that have been added. We've got water bottles, spectral arrows, and blackstone. Now spectral arrows aren't anything too special, but these two are interesting. First of all, you might think water bottles are a bit of a weird choice considering, wait, there's no water in the nether, but I believe the reason that they've done this is so that it is now completely possible to set up a brewing station in the nether using only things you've gathered from the nether. So you can now get brewing stands like we talked about earlier from blackstone, and you can get water bottles from piglins, so now it is completely possible to do all of your brewing in the nether. And then this one over here, blackstone, means that blackstone is finally renewable. This was a pretty big problem before, was that blackstone was a very nice building block, but it was completely impossible to get renewably, so that is now possible and very nice. This isn't everything that has been changed involving bartering. There have also been a few tweaks to the loot that you will get across the board. Mostly everything has been decreased, so bartering has been nerfed a little bit. But I don't really want to go over all that right now because it's kind of boring. But if you are interested in seeing everything that has been changed, I did go over all of that in a separate video back in one of the 1.16.2 snapshots. So if you're interested in that, there is a link in the description as well as up in that iCard in the corner there should be right now. So let's move on. Here we've got an Enderman because Endermen are no longer able to place down blocks they are holding on top of bedrock. The reason for this change is that they don't want Endermen placing down blocks on top of the bedrock ceiling above the nether, and that was causing problems for people where the Enderman would pick up blocks and place them down and create new spawning spaces, and then mobs would start spawning, so that should no longer happen. Over here we've got a Strider because Strider's pathfinding has been changed. Earlier, despite the fact that they like to be in lava and they will only be happy if they're in lava, otherwise they'll be all cold and shivery, their pathfinding did not actually account for that, and they wouldn't really try to stay in lava at all. But in this version that has been changed, and so they should now attempt to stay in lava. And then over here, another change with the Strider is that sometimes, as you know, piglin zombies, whatever you call it, zombified piglins, drew a blank there, will spawn on top of Striders, but now instead of holding a golden sword, they will hold a nylium on a stick. And the reason for this change is so that new players can figure out how you are supposed to lead Striders around. Here we've got another villager because there's been another change to villagers and their workstations, which is that they will now lose their job if they change dimensions. So if this guy was a farmer, for example, and I pushed him through to the other side of this portal, he would immediately lose his job. Mobs can now suffocate inside of these three blocks here. We've got the path block, the farmland, and the soul sand, and what these three all have in common is that their hitboxes are all slightly smaller than a full block. So that has been fixed, and these will now cause mobs to suffocate. Next up, we're on to the smallest of the categories, structures, and all of these things involve the Piglin bastions. So first up, the chests in Piglin bastions will now try to spawn as much as possible on top of gilded blackstone. The reason for this change is that people liked to use hoppers and stuff to suck the items out of chests and cheat the piglins, but now if you try to break the block underneath it, it's a blackstone that is gilded, and they get angry when you break that block, so that should deter people from trying to cheat the system a little bit. Next, we've got quite a few changes to the actual loot of Piglin bastions. There's nothing in these chests. I did an entire video where I talked about all of the stuff that has changed here, and I'll link to that. There'll probably be like an iCard up in the corner right now, and you can watch that if you want, but suffice to say that everything has pretty much been upgraded. Basically everything across the board has been increased in terms of loot that you'll find in Piglin bastions. And then lastly, you already knew about this, but the Piglin Brute has been added, so they will now spawn in the Piglin bastions. And now we are on to the other category, so this is everything that doesn't really fall into any of the other gameplay related categories. So first up, we've got two new sliders in the accessibility settings category. We've got distortion effects and FOV effects. So these are both sliders that can go from 100 all the way down to off, so let's just turn those off for a second and you'll see what happens. So first up, if we're in survival mode and we try to go into a portal, you will see that now that we have these both off, the swirling that usually happens on your screen when you walk into a nether portal is no longer there. Then next up, we've got some soul sand. So if we have our soul speed boots on and we stand on this and we have that effect off, you can see that the screen will no longer zoom in and make it, or zoom out I mean, and make it look like we're running really fast. So that has been changed as well. And then lastly, with the pufferfish, usually when you eat these you get the nausea effect and it will cause your screen to swirl around, and that makes some people sick, like I said earlier. So now if we eat this while that effect is off, that swirling effect has been replaced by a bit of like a green border that will start to appear around the screen that represents the fact that you have the nausea effect. Over here we've got a command block because there is a brand new parameter for the spawn point command, which is this last number here, the angle, as you can see. So what that does is if we were to activate this, it would set my spawn point to right here, but that angle command would set what angle I would spawn at. So for example, if I set it to like 90, I would be facing like this way, and then if I set it to 180, I would be facing a totally different way when I respawned. And then lastly, data packs have been upgraded to version number 6, so this is not incredibly exciting for most people, but since I like making data packs, I figured I'd mention it. So basically, every data pack sort of comes with a number inside of it that tells the game what version it is for, and because of the changes to walls in 1.16, that made things kind of broken when it came to data packs, I guess, in some cases, they have decided to upgrade data packs to version number 6. So I believe that means that every data pack for 1.16 and above will probably have to start using number 6 if they want full functionality. So that is a very brief summary of all the important changes in 1.16.2. Keep in mind that this is not technically everything. There were still a whole ton of bug fixes in this that were relatively small and I didn't really feel like it was worth mentioning, but you can find a link to the entire list of bug fixes and changes in this entire update down in the description below. So I hope you all enjoyed watching, and see you next time everybody. Bye!